Penguin Random House Audio presents Rich in Love, written and read by Josephine Humphreys.
On an afternoon 2 years ago, my life veered from its day-in, day-out course, and became for a short while the kind of life that can be told as a story. That is, one in which events appear to have meaning. Before, there had been nothing worth telling the world. We had our irregularities, but every family has something or other out of whack. We had my mother's absent-mindedness, my sister's abnormal beauty, my father's innocence. And I was not without oddities of my own. We were characters, my friend Wayne said, but nothing about us was story material. Until the day, May 10th, when one of us betrayed the rest and set off a series of events worth telling. I rode my bicycle home from school. All looked normal. I sniffed. High spring, Carolina, health and prosperity. People were shopping like crazy in stores along the highway. Plants were growing in the median. Traffic was a carefree stream of cars. The afternoon was average and happy to the eye of a casual observer. Supposedly, your hair stands on end in the instant before you get struck by lightning. I had a similar sensation that afternoon on the highway. I recognized the tingle as a premonition, but a useless one, no specific details, only the feeling. I looked around me. I rubbed my upper lip, a habit of nervousness. 17 years old and in possession of a valid driver's license, I could have been driving my mother's VW camper. She didn't drive it much. Or my father's Buick. His license had been temporarily suspended for speeding. But I preferred the open air, and the way the afternoon spread out around me with its sounds and smells. My sister Ray felt like I did on the subject, only she didn't ride a bike anymore. She had a 20-year-old Impala convertible. Because it opened up, you could ride in it and still feel the scenery. She had driven herself to Sweetbriar College in that car 4 years in a row, and then to Washington, D.C., where she worked for a U.S. senator. I liked Ray's car fine, but the bicycle was better for me because it was quiet. I liked to travel silently. Where I rode, the old zones of country, town, and city had run together. Originally, we had the city of Charleston and the town of Mount Pleasant and then the country, but now they were jumbled, haphazard as a frontier settlement. This new section of highway had been laid out with no regard to pre-existing roads. Out in the developments, some of the new roads curved back upon themselves, and I sometimes lost my sense of direction trying to get somewhere. It was as if new places had been slapped down over the old ones, but some of the old was still showing through. I tried not to lose myself in those pockets. It could sometimes be too much for me. A house at the edge of a field, the rim of pines, the smoke. It wrenched my heart. There was too much emotion for me in the country. Every so often, I'd run across what I called a dream house, one that somebody had started but never finished. They were scattered through the woods like ruins of a defunct civilization, but they were only the ruins of defunct families. Somebody had wanted a house and had gotten as far as a slab and walls, but then the money had run out, or the wife had run out, and all that was left was a cinder-block shell, the house a dream of itself, square-eyed and black-mouthed. Whenever I saw one, I stopped by the side of the road and stood leaning on my bicycle to look. Sometimes out there I would get the hollow feeling. I called it loneliness, though I knew it wasn't exactly loneliness because I was the type of person who liked solitude. From Wando High to Mount Pleasant was straight, uninterrupted shopping, with no let-up, a hive of purchasing activity that was reassuring. The level of shopping was an indicator, in my opinion, of human trust in the future. I myself sometimes woke up in the middle of the night, scared to death. When I tried to pinpoint the fear, nothing logical came to mind. All I could come up with was the end of the world. But nobody else feared that. Look at them, swarming into the garden center, coming out with flats of two-tone petunias and soaker hoses. But I had that tingling. I didn't know where it might come from, but I was prepared. If I had one personality trait, it was vigilance. Let the world do its worst. Lucille Odom was ready. I sensed that I was on a verge. A large block of time was due to crack open in front of me, the future that up till then had been impenetrable. I stuck to the highway. Even though I had traveled it that morning, I saw new things. I noticed for the first time a new TV tower in the distance, making a string of 6 now, in the long stretch of marsh up the intracoastal waterway. A car went by. Something pinged against my helmet. A jelly bean could do me in, I realized. I wore a safety helmet and didn't care how I looked. If I had been a normal teenage girl, I might have cared, but I wasn't and didn't. When I say I wasn't normal, I don't just mean I had the usual adolescent delusions of being different from everyone else. My upper lip had failed to fuse during a critical embryonic stage, and I'd been born with a split there. Not a full-fledged hair lip, but a small, neat slice not quite all the way through. When I was 3, the lip had been repaired, and now they said it was hardly noticeable. Well, does hardly noticeable mean noticeable or not noticeable? But I wasn't one to set store by looks. For a long time I felt guilty about my lip, and I had an urge to apologize to my mother for it. Imagine expecting another wonder baby and getting one with a flapping lip. However, I later found out that I had no need to apologize. It was more likely that she needed to apologize to me. I accepted the seam, ran my finger over its shiny ridge whenever I was in deep thought, and went on with my life. I had no time for guilt or resentment. I had interests that required all my attention, interests unlike those of most teenagers. I was studying certain things. Something had come over me, recently, like within the past few weeks. It was primarily a feeling. I called it invision, because it was almost as if I could see into things. I couldn't take my eyes off physical objects, plants, dogs, faces, birds, all the world of nature, but also manufactured items such as cars, mailboxes, chain-link fencing. Invision, I decided, was a gift, and I received it the way a child receives something that may very well not have been meant for him. I hid it. Pop had lost his license after a number of speeding offenses. He was a good driver, had never had a wreck, but he couldn't help driving fast due to his faith in the world. Caution is an attribute of the suspicious mind. A man without a car is a miserable creature, especially a businessman, especially a Southern businessman. What was he supposed to do, he said, ride the bus? Mother said the bus was quite nice, in fact, but she ended up driving him everywhere he wanted to go. He was embarrassed to the bone and sat with his head lowered. Sitting on the passenger side made him feel like a pansy, he'd said yesterday. "Oh, Warren," Mother said. She was interested in homosexuals and protective of them ideologically. I was riding in the back seat, listening. I loved their discussions and listened whenever I could. "I can't help it," he said. "I'm not passing judgment, I'm just saying. I feel light. I feel passive. I feel like I'm not in the driver's seat." "That's very interesting," she said, smiling faintly. She always seemed mildly amused by the world. "You feel threatened by my driving." "Not at all. Not at all. You're a fine driver, an excellent driver. I love your driving. Drive me to Build-A-Rama for shingles and nails." "I think you should go to the hardware store," she said. "I don't like ramas and thons. Dioramas, telethons, cineramas, walkathons. Let's just buy the shingles at Mr. Powell's store. He has 'em, doesn't he?" "He does. Drive me to Mr. Powell's.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?